Welcome to this presentation in which we're going to discuss discussion board participation. In my classes, sometimes this is a 5% of your grade and sometimes it's 10% of your grade. You'll be able to figure out what the formula is for your particular class by looking at the syllabus. That is the official word on the percentage. So be sure to check it. In fact, my suggestion is pause me right now and go ahead and check it. Obviously, if it's 10% of your grade, it deserves a little bit more attention, a little bit more focus than if it's 5% of your grade. Well, let's get started. Let's find out kind of what the nitty-gritties are with respect to the participation. You'll find typically that the discussion boards are within the various modules. So here we have one. It's called Chapter 1 Discussion Board Introductions, and we see the date here is May 26. I'm doing this on May 23rd, so I still have a few days to participate in this. You need to participate by at least, your first participation by at least noon on Saturday. But I encourage you to post early in the week. In fact, I ask if you can to go ahead and post on Monday, because when you make your first post, then that gives other folks the opportunity to reply to your post. If everyone waits until the last day to post, then that can kind of make the discussion not so natural and evolving. Also, it means that people who are unavailable during that weekend, maybe they're traveling or something like that, they may get locked out of making replies. So you're doing a kindness, I think, both to yourself and to your colleagues if you post earlier. But you do meet the requirements of the discussion board if you post by noon on Saturday. You can't make your reply post on the same date that you make your first post. So if you make your first post on Monday and somebody else has replied on Monday, go ahead and wait until Tuesday to make your reply post. I ask you to do that so that, again, it's a natural evolving process, just the way a real conversation would happen, where there's a give and take and you listen and see how other people have responded to a particular topic. It also ensures that you visit more than once a week. There's lots of things happening in one of my Canvas classrooms, and I don't want you to miss something because you don't visit that often. So let's get started. So I'm going to click on our discussion board. And when I get in here, I'm going to read it. You'll see that typically in my discussion board, there's the prompt, and then usually the last 2/3 or so is going to be information that is largely the same week to week. Now, I say largely the same, but I do tweak it from time to time, and so you should go ahead and scan it at least to make sure that there's not any changes. Sometimes, for example, instead of making a reply post, I ask you to do something else. For example, to vote for another person, which argument did you find most persuasive, or to do something else. And so you do want to go ahead and scan it just for a second to see if this is the same old, or if there's something unique here. In some classes, I actually will give you a choice of more than one prompt. In this one, there's just one prompt. Obviously, if there's more than one prompt, read them both, decide which one is more compelling to you. This one is just an introduction. In most of my classes, I start with an introductory post, so this is going to be something most likely you'll see in your first week in the class. And here we have, please introduce yourself to your professor and your classmates. Create a thread for your discussion by hitting the reply button below, and that is this button right here. The thread title should include your name and one other fact about yourself. For example, I might name my introductory thread Professor Groover, crochet enthusiast. In the actual post, explain what attracted you to paralegal studies. Provide at least one personal fact about yourself, such as your favorite color or dessert. In addition to making your initial post, you must reply to at least one other student's post. In some of my classes, I ask that you reply to 2 students. In some, I ask that you reply to 1 or more students. It's your call. If you only have to reply to 1, you obviously can reply to more than 1, but the assignment is just the 1. So be sure to read that. Typically, whatever the rule is in that particular class is how it's going to be for each discussion board. And then I have, again, some information about how to go about doing it. In some classes, the points are 10 for the discussion board, and some they're 5 for the discussion board. Sometimes I correlate that to the number of points in terms of percentages that are available for the class. For example, if it's 5% of your class grade, it's probably going to be 5 points. If it's 10% of your class grade, it may well be 10 points here, but I don't always correlate it. So you shouldn't just assume because it says 10 points here that it automatically means it's worth 10% of your grade. Let's just go ahead and read here. On the discussion board, engage your classmates in stimulating conversation just as you would in a live lecture class. The instructor will be monitoring the discussion board weekly for class participation. She'll be looking for substantive posts for each student, posts that are more than "I just enjoyed this topic." She's looking for thought-provoking comments. If you want to receive full credit for your post, you're going to need to make, in this class, at least 2 posts. And your first one is your main or substantive post. You'll do that blind. You won't be able to see anything in the discussion board until you make that first post. Your first post has to be at least 100 words, and you need to include the word count at the end. The reply post should contain at least 2 grammatically correct sentences. Most people do fine with a substantive post. The reply post can be a little bit less scintillating, I sure agree with you, you make good arguments. Just be sure that you are expanding upon it, saying what you agree with, saying why you agree with it. In some classes, I have a discussion board for each module. In some classes, I have it for every other module. In this class, it's for odd-numbered chapter modules. You'll want to just make sure that you understand what the rules are in your class, that this is not, in fact, in most of my classes, I have them for each module, so that's kind of the default setting. In some classes, you have to respond to all of your discussion boards, or if you don't, you're going to lose points. I guess it's not a requirement, but you will lose points. In some classes, even though I may have a discussion board for each module, I'm only concerned with, say, the top 10 of your scores. So again, that's something else to look for. You say, well, gosh, professor, where am I going to find this information? The way to do it is to go to home and to look at cheat sheet, what to do each week. If this is probably the single most important part of the orientation material. Because when you click on here, it says, this is what I need to do. I need to read the textbook chapter. In this class, we have password quizzes. That's not always the case in other classes. I need to watch the video. But as I flip down here to the discussion board participation, it reminds me of the rules. If this were the type of class that you only have to do 10 responses, that would be listed here as well. So if you can't remember what the rules are, just remember that information is going to be in the cheat sheet. This is a really, really important resource. In fact, if I were you, I would print it out and put it in my notebook that I have for this class, so I've got it handy dandy and I don't have to pull it out each time, because this is very, very useful information. Let me go back to the discussion board. Let's go ahead and just make a discussion board post. Typically, I'm going to recommend that you write your discussion board post in Word. The reason why this is a good idea is that it's super easy to do your word count. So I've written it up in Word, and now I'm going to go to Review, and I go to Word Count, and look, it's 124 words. Couldn't be easier. Then I add word count 124, and I'm done. Then I'm going to copy this. I'm going to hit reply, and I'm just going to post it in here. In this particular example, I'm going to lead with my little heading. Not necessary that you do this, but it's nice. Some people like to start with, Dear Professor Groover, or Dear Class, or whatever. That's also fine. So now I have the discussion board post, and all I do to post it is I hit reply. Once I hit reply, then I'm going to see everyone else's posts. I'm not going to focus on those. And then I would have the ability to reply to it. So we have a test student. So I'm going to hit reply. And now I could reply to this post. Dear Professor Groover. Again, in this class, I just have to have 2 grammatically correct sentences. I also enjoy needlework, though I prefer knitting. I am not very fond of reading. I enjoy working out as my primary hobby. And then we could say, again, you're not going to reply to your own post. I'll just close it with regards, Bob Smith. And so now I hit reply post. See, I have 2 sentences, and I hit reply, and I'm good. Okay, so that's how you go about participating in the discussion board. I'm done with my main post and my reply post in this particular class. I need to respond to at least one other student's response. Your discussion board participation will be due on Sunday at 11:59 p.m. So be sure that you note that date. So it's basically from first thing Monday to the end of the day on Sunday. It will cease to be available at 11:59 p.m. And so it's not a situation where you'll be able to continue to participate after that point. In your reply, obviously, you're going to want to be professional and on topic. Sometimes folks get a little casual with their grammar or their punctuation. Word can be a great resource in helping you sort through any grammar issues that you have. If I leave out a word here or create some kind of problem, it will tell me. So I can go through and hit spelling and grammar, and it'll tell me, oh, it doesn't like my passive voice there. I could change that. So saying I am drawn to, I'm going to say I enjoy. And it'll point out other issues, some of which you're going to agree with, some of which you aren't going to agree with. I'm going to go on, and again, I'm completed now with the task. So use the tools that are available to you to do the best job that you can. Be sure that you have the right punctuation, the right spelling, and all of those things. This is, college work. This is not intended to be an informal communication. Another thing that I would encourage you to use the discussion board for is to develop professional relationships. Notice who makes good posts, who seems to have a deep understanding of the material. That person would be an ideal person for you to reach out to establish a study group with, or to brainstorm when you run into a roadblock on a particular assignment. Hey, what do you think about this? People in the discussion board are also good resources for developing professional networking relationships. As you get to know folks, you may discover, oh, that person has the kind of job I want. You may want to spend 15 minutes chatting with them about how they got the job and if there are other openings in their particular place of employment. See the people in your class as a source of networking. And honestly, in a way, discussion boards provide more of an opportunity for networking than sometimes face-to-face classes, because if you sit in a room, you have an opportunity to talk to the people maybe immediately around you, but it may be awkward for you to get to know people, say, at the other side of the room. In a discussion board, everybody is around you, and you do have that opportunity to be a little bit more familiar with what's going on. So those are some pointers. Oh, one more pointer I'd like to point out is when you go into your after the discussion board closes, typically I grade them oftentimes the very next day, but it might be a day or two longer. As the grades will appear, you will find that there will be comments sometimes, and you'll see it over here here, this one tells you that this particular grade is not included in discussion in the comments. So that's what that means. The Canvas is saying this is not going to be included in the calculation. Let's look at this one though. Oh, sorry. May not have a discussion board. I might not have a comment here. There will be a little sign that is like two discussion comments here. Anyway, you can click on that next to the grade and that will give you the comments. I might say something, for example, if you don't get all of the points on the discussion board, almost always I'm going to include a comment to explain what went awry. Maybe you forgot to include the word count. Maybe your word count was under 100 words. Maybe you forgot to do one or more reply posts. I know there's a lot to keep in mind, and so when I don't give you all the points, I like to remind you that way. Hopefully that information will stick and you'll be able to remember to dot that I and cross that T in the next discussion board. So be sure to read the discussion board comments. Again, if it's out of 5 points, if you get less than 5, I'm going to include a comment. If it's out of 10 points and you get less than 10, I'm going to include a comment. Go ahead and read that so that you'll know how to hopefully earn all the points next time. I thank you for your attention and have a wonderful day.